Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a subject that usually sits right at the intersection of adulting goals and pure anxiety:
Homeownership.
homeownership. But, and stick with me here, we aren't doing the usual doom scrolling through national interest rate headlines. We're not talking about needing to be a tech billionaire to afford a closet in San Francisco. We are zooming all the way in.
We really are. We're getting hyper-local today. We're looking at a specific guide titled Your First Home in Alliance.
That's Alliance, Ohio, zip code 44601 for anyone following along on a map.
Right. And the whole premise is, honestly, it's pretty refreshing.
It's almost countercultural right now. It argues that in this specific community, homeownership isn't some distant, impossible dream. It's actually, well, it's the logical, accessible next step for the average working family.
It suggests the mountain we think we have to climb is actually just a gentle hill, if you know the path.
It definitely flips the script. We are so used to seeing reports about, barriers to entry, inventory shortages, bidding wars.
And that's true in a lot of places. But this guide presents Alliance as this fascinating case study. A pocket of the market where the door is wide open, but people just assume it's locked.
Before we get into the heavy math, and there's some startling math coming up, I want to talk about the vibe of this guide.
Okay.
Because usually financial documents are dry, they look like spreadsheets. This one starts with illustration that I found really evocative. It's a street at night, tree line, street lamps are glowing.
I know the one, with the warm light spilling out of the windows.
Yes, it feels cozy, it feels attainable, it doesn't scream real estate transaction, it screams home.
That visual is doing a lot of heavy lifting for the guide's mission. It's trying to reframe the conversation from acquiring an asset to, I think the phrase they use is planting roots.
Planting roots, I like that.
They break the appeal of Alliance down into three pillars. You have real affordability, which we'll dissect.
Yeah.
You have location. It's a commuter hub for Canton and Akron. And then you have strong community.
The Americana factor.
Exactly. Neighbors waving hello, Friday night football, festivals. It's selling a lifestyle where you're not just occupying a space, you're part of a fabric.
But as much as I love the Main Street charm, charm doesn't pay the bills. And this is where the guide gets aggressive in the best way possible.
Right.
It makes a bold claim. For the average renter in Alliance, buying is likely cheaper. Not eventually cheaper in 30 years, but monthly cash flow cheaper right now.
And this is where the deep dive really begins. They introduce a concept they call the rent trap. And they lay out a calculation that I think every renter needs to hear, even if it hurts a little.
I ran these numbers myself just to double check them because they seem so stark. They use a baseline rent of $900.
Which is pretty conservative, really.
It's very conservative. Finding a decent rental for that is getting harder every day. But even at that $900 baseline, the guide asks you to look at a 5-year timeline.
So $900 a month for 5 years, that's what, 60 months? You've paid out $54,000.
$54,000. That is a luxury car. That's a down payment on a massive property. It's a lot of money.
And the guide asks the killer question. What do you have to show for that $54,000 at the end of the 5 years?
A stack of receipts.
Essentially, yes. You purchased time in the space. You didn't purchase any value. Your return on investment is zero.
It's startling when you zoom out like that. We tend to think month to month, can I pay the $900 this month? Yes. Okay, I'm good.
But seeing that $54,000 just vanish, that hurts.
And that is the equity argument the guide pushes. If that same $54,000 went toward a mortgage, you're not just booked for shelter, you are paying down principal.
You're building a forced savings account. Plus, the guide highlights the tax benefits, deducting mortgage interest, property taxes, which you simply can't do with rent.
There's also the stability factor. I think everyone listening has had that moment about 60 days before your lease is up where you get that pit in your stomach. You're waiting for the letter. Is rent going up $50? 100? 200?
That unpredictability is the cost of renting. The source material emphasizes that a fixed-rate mortgage is the ultimate rent control. You are locking in your housing costs for 15, 20, or 30 years.
Imagine knowing exactly what your rent will be in the year 2040.
It's a wild concept. Inflation happens, gas goes up, groceries double, but your housing payment stays flat.
So in real terms, it actually gets cheaper over time as your income hopefully goes up.
Exactly. But here is the aha moment for me in the text. It's not just about long-term stability, it's the monthly comparison right now.
Yeah.
They run a scenario for a $120,000 home in Alliance.
Okay, let's look at this, because I think for listeners in big cities, a $120,000 home sounds like a typo.
It sounds like a down payment. But no, in this market, that's a real number. For 44601, it's very realistic.
So what's the payment on that?
The guide estimates that with a 5% down payment on that home, your total monthly payment, and this includes everything, mortgage, taxes, insurance.
The full PITI.
The full PITI, right. It would be roughly $800 to $900 a month.
Wait, hold on. So let me get this straight. You're paying $900 to rent, where the money disappears. Or you could pay maybe $850 to own a house where you build equity.
That is the math.
Yeah.
And that is why they call it a trap. If the monthly payment is the same, or even less, why would anyone choose the option where they walk away with nothing?
That is the million-dollar question, or I guess the $120,000 question. If the math is so obvious, why isn't everyone doing it?
Barriers. Or, as the guide argues, myths about barriers.
Yeah.
There's a section titled, What You Really Need to Buy, and it reads like a Mythbusters episode.
Let's bust them, because I'll admit I believe some of these. Myth number 1, the credit score. I feel like we've been conditioned to believe you need a perfect 800 score.
Or the bank manager just points at the door and laughs.
Exactly.
But the source material corrects this with hard data. It explicitly states that loan programs exist for scores as low as 580 to 620.
580. That is significantly lower than I expected. Is that safe?
It's not subprime in that dangerous 2008 sense. These are often government-backed programs we'll get to. But the guide notes that a score in the 640 to 660 range opens up most conventional loan options.
So you don't need to be a financial saint.
You just need to be in the fair to good range.
Okay, so you don't need perfection. But then we run into the big one. The monster under the bed. The down payment.
It's a 20% myth.
Everyone knows you need 20% down. If I'm buying a $100,000 house, I need $20,000 cash sitting in a bank account. Who has that?
Very few first-time buyers. And the expert reality check in the guide is stark. Programs exist for 0 to 3.5% down.
Let's do the math on that $100,000 home again. 3.5% is
$3,500.
That is a completely different psychological hurdle. $20,000 is I need to win the lottery. $3,500 is I need to save my tax refund and maybe skip takeout for a few months.
Precisely. And the guide features a testimonial that I found really powerful. From a first-time buyer named Mackenzie G. She says, and I'm quoting, "I qualified with less than I had saved for a security deposit and first month's rent on my apartment."
Wow. So for her, it was literally cheaper up front to buy the house than to move into a new rental. It changes the entire framing.
It does. And the third myth they tackle is income. This belief that homeownership is for the six-figure club.
Right. You need to be a doctor or a lawyer.
But the guide emphasizes that lenders care about steady income and a manageable debt-to-income ratio. You don't need to be rich. You just need to be consistent.
It seems like the theme here is that the system is actually built to help people get in, if you know where to look, which brings us to the toolkit section.
Right, the alphabet soup.
The alphabet soup. FHA, USDA, VA. What do these actually mean for a buyer in Alliance?
Think of these as the keys that unlock those low down payments. They aren't random letters. They're specific programs. Let's start with FHA.
Federal Housing Administration.
Right. This is the classic first-time buyer loan. It allows for that 3.5% down payment, and it's much more lenient with credit scores. It does include mortgage insurance, which is a small extra cost, but it's the price of admission.
Okay. And then there's USDA. Now, when I hear USDA, I think of steaks or farms.
Those people do. It's the U.S. Department of Agriculture. But here's the unique localized insight from the guide. There are areas in and around Alliance that qualify as rural for these loans.
And why does rural matter to my wallet?
Because USDA rural development loans can offer 0% down payment.
Zero.
Zero. If you meet the income limits, basically if you don't make too much money and you buy in the qualifying zone, you can get the keys with no down payment at all.
That is a massive feature that I bet most people don't know about.
It's huge. And then, of course, the VA loans.
For veterans and active military.
Yes. The guide calls this the gold standard. 0% down and no mortgage insurance. If you've served, it is hands down the best financial tool available.
And finally, they mention OHFA and local aid.
That's the Ohio Housing Finance Agency. They can layer on top of these other loans. They can offer down payment assistance or competitive rates. And specifically for Alliance, the guide mentions Stark County Resources. It paints a picture of a layered support system. You aren't doing this alone.
So we've established that it's affordable and there are programs to help you buy, but I have to ask the skeptical question. What are you actually buying for $100,000? Am I buying a shack?
That's a fair concern in 2024. In some markets, 100 grand gets you a parking space. But this is where the real affordability of Alliance shines. The guide breaks down the housing stock into price tiers.
Let's walk through those. What does entry level look like?
They classify entry level as $70,000 to $110,000. These are smaller homes, maybe a little older. The guide says they're great for handy buyers.
So livable, solid bones, but maybe some pink bathrooms and shag carpet?
Exactly. Sweat equity potential.
Sure.
But then you step up to the mid-range, 150 to 185.
And that's the sweet spot.
That's the sweet spot for many families. Move-in ready, 3 bedrooms, yards, garages.
And then the high end.
The high end in Alliance is 225 to 250. And that gets you a large home, recent renovations, desirable neighborhoods.
And it's wild that even at the high end, $250,000 is still drastically lower than regional averages in bigger cities.
It reinforces the whole theme. It connects back to quality of life. You're not house poor. You can afford the house and still afford to put gas in the car.
So say I'm convinced. The process itself still feels like a black box. The guide has a section called the buying process, simple version. Can we simplify it?
We can. They break it down into 5 steps, and they emphasize the whole journey typically takes 30 to 60 days. It's faster than people think.
Okay, step 1.
Talk to a lender. The guide stresses this is free, no obligation. It's just information gathering.
Step 2.
Get pre-approved. This is the letter that proves you're a serious buyer. You really can't make an offer without it.
Step 3 is the fun part.
Look at homes. Touring, imagining your life there.
Step.
Make an offer, negotiation, and then inspections to make sure the house is solid.
Step 5.
Close. Sign the paperwork, pay your closing costs, get the keys.
It sounds so linear when you say it like that, but I know people still have that pit in their stomach. The what ifs.
The fear.
Yes. The guide has a section called Common Buyer Fears Answered. I want to throw these at you.
Go for it.
Fear number 1, it's the wrong time to buy. I feel like I hear this every single year.
There's always a reason to wait. But the guide argues that timing the market is impossible. They describe Alliance as a stable market, meaning you don't see those dramatic, scary swings. So the right time is just when you are financially ready.
Fear number 2, what if something breaks? This is the classic renter fear. The landlord fixes the toilet. If I own it, it's on me.
That is the reality of homeownership. You can't sugarcoat that. The guide suggests aiming for an emergency fund of $1,000 to $2,000 for this. But it also points out that home inspections catch major issues before you buy.
And I suppose the trade-off is, yes, you pay for the repair, but you aren't paying your landlord's profit margin every single month.
Exactly. And the last big fear is future affordability. What if I can't afford it later?
This brings us back to the fixed-rate mortgage.
It does. Your payment stays the same. But historically, your income will likely grow. You get raises, you advance in your career. So technically, the house becomes more affordable relative to your income every year you live there.
That is a comforting thought. It's the opposite of inflation.
It is. And I appreciate the philosophy the guide takes toward these fears. They call it education first, pressure never.
Yeah, talk about that soft start approach.
They explicitly say the process shouldn't feel like a high-pressure sales pitch. It starts with a conversation, coffee, an office meeting, just to review your situation confidentially. And the outcome isn't buy now. It's a clear action plan.
Which might be buying now, or it might be waiting 6 months to fix your credit.
Right. It puts the power back in the buyer's hands. It's not about asking for permission. It's about making a plan.
So to wrap this up, what does this all mean? We've looked at the math, the myths, the market.
I think it means that for a lot of people in Alliance, the door is unlocked. They just haven't turned the handle yet. The guide's summary is quite powerful. It says people with similar incomes and credit scores to you are moving from renting to owning every single month. It's not luck. It's just taking the first step.
And there's that quote from Sarah M., an Alliance homeowner since 2023. She said the hardest part was just believing it was possible.
And that brings us back to that visual at the end of the guide, the piggy bank and the set of keys. It really symbolizes what this is about. Wealth creation, yes, but also memory making, having a place that is yours.
It's a compelling argument. And the guide leaves us with a provocative thought that I want to leave our listeners with today. It asks, if your rent payment is already higher than a mortgage would be, what is actually stopping you from building your own equity instead of your landlord's?
That is the question to sleep on.
Absolutely. Whether you're in Alliance, Ohio, or just curious about how these markets work, I hope this deep dive gave you some of those aha moments. Sometimes the biggest barrier is just not knowing the rules of the game.
Knowledge is the key. Pun intended.
Pun intended. Thanks for listening, everyone. Go find your own Main Street charm. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.